You say facts and circumstances. Let me ask you, under what facts and circumstances exactly would it be lawful to waterboard a prisoner?
The question would be for me to do precisely what I said I shouldn't do, because I would be, number one, imagining facts and circumstances that are not present, and thereby telling our enemies exactly what they can expect in those eventualities. Those eventualities may never occur. I would also be telling people in the field, when I'm not faced with a particular situation, what they have to refrain from or not refrain from in a situation that is not before me, and in situations that they may find analogous. I shouldn't do either one of those.
Well, let me ask then finally, are there any interrogation techniques that you would find to be illegal, fundamentally illegal?
There are statutes that describe specifically what we may not do. We may not maim, we may not rape. There is a whole list of specifically barred techniques.
Waterboarding isn't on that list.
It's not.
Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy questioning Attorney General Mike Mukasey. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin also took up the issue of waterboarding with Mukasey.
Attorney General, this body in this chamber, if you refer to the Senate,
I'm referring to the Senate,
has voted clearly on a bipartisan, overwhelming vote that we would prohibit such practices with the McCain Amendment. So if you're going to rely on the chamber has expressed its will in exactly the opposite position you've taken.
And the chamber, on another occasion, declined, voted down a bill that would forbid waterboarding. And there were people in the course of the debate on the measure that you mentioned who said that the language was so general that it would open things up to all sorts of behavior that they considered objectionable and cruel, which I would think would include waterboarding, because there are people who say that.
If the Detainee Treatment Act, I think, is clear in terms of the law of the land and the expression of this chamber, and even went so far as to offer amnesty, immunity, to employees of the government who've been engaged in it, do you still think that the jury's out on whether the Senate believes that waterboarding is torture?
The question is not whether the Senate is out on this or that technique. The question is whether the Senate has spoken clearly enough in the legislation that it has passed, and that the Congress at large has passed, and that the President has signed, which is all anybody's really got to work with.
So where is the lack of clarity in the McCain legislation?
The words of the legislation, of all the legislation that's thus far been passed, are words that are general and upon which, as I said, people on both sides of the debate have already disagreed. To point to this language or that language, it seems to me, is to pick nits at this point. People have disagreed about the generality of the language and have said that it can be read two ways.
I might just say that, as the chairman has noted here as a matter of record, Senators McCain, Warner, and Graham, the lead sponsors of this legislation, have said that under the Military Commission Act, waterboarding is a war crime. It is unequivocal. How do you, at this moment in time, you have employees in
Is a war crime. It's unequivocal. And in fact, John McCain said that, and the other people, everyone in the Congress and Senate know this, yet Lucchese, the new Attorney General, doesn't seem to want to admit it. What do you think? This is my friend Dean Lauren.
How are you? I personally know Mukasey, and I know that he is a liar. Up front, he's an obfuscator. Is that somebody who puts clouds up?
Yeah,
Smoke?
obfuscates the truth, like Dick Cheney.
Absolutely. I was a victim of it with the other special ed kids at Martin Luther King. I could talk about it all night, but what does Paula say?
Well, what do you mean?
I just want to get into the roots of torture. I mean, what are they trying to hide? I think there's secrets going on, and I think even the whole torture thing can be a distraction. That there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are watching the TV fakery. They're taking down the sites off YouTube.
Well,
and everyone's
wait a second. Let's
stampeding.
stay on the topic here. Torture is torture. Why? I don't know why. It's sadism. There is no admittance. Blood belongs in the body,
What do you
not out.
think?
We don't need to analyze our garbage. You just have to recognize it, get rid of it, and say thank you. I don't want to act that way and immaturely and violent.
Well, I'd have to say that the torture is the means to the end. So I see that the military complex is now morphing with the banking complex, and they are really unifying all the world resources we have now. Air, clean water, and clean food. And nothing is standing in their way. They
Right,
have lost their
Monsanto
humanity.
engineered crops. They're controlling our food, our harvests, and of course the truth and the media.
But
And
you
and
feel
we know
confident
that
to
torture
say-
does not give any truth. You know, anyone mostly says renders very little information for the revolution or the radical element. So it's completely barbaric, insane, and sadistic. And it just shouldn't be allowed. And our Attorney General, Mr. Lucchese, is not admitting to it, even though he's being grilled by Senate saying, hey, we all feel this is a war crime. And why won't he admit it? What's the agenda here?
The agenda, for a fact, is that Lucchese is backing Giuliani as a front spokesman. This has been his modus operandi, I guess, as early as 1992 or 91 when Giuliani was first elected as mayor. But Giuliani was his boss previously as early as 1982, and in fact they clerked together for Judge Tyler.
So you figure when Hitler or Obama get into the White House, they're going to have Giuliani as the Attorney General?
If McCain accedes to the presidency, he will have Giuliani as U.S. Attorney.
Or maybe
Lucchese-
Hillary too. It's part of the New World Order. It's still marching
Hillary.
orders. Hillary is part of the New World Order. She's authorized the whole War Agenda Act. She's not into immediate withdrawal of troops and diplomacy.
Some say Obama is advised by Brzezinski, who wants to go right into Russia, and we have the weapons for the clash of civilizations. It's not about Iran and Iraq. It's about China and Russia.
We have always wanted Russia. That was Avril Harriman's dream, and George Prescott Bush. That whole World War II was a reorganization of Europe, and in fact, somehow Stalin got wind of it. In fact, if you look back in history, you see that FDR was, and I to this day believe he was assassinated two weeks before the signing of the Yalta the Declaration for the division of the spoils of Europe. And Europe, when I was in college, I was a nuclear chemist. The professor that I was with, and this was in 1980, said the Iron Wall, or the wall around Russia, was not built to keep Russians from leaving, but to keep us out from the Ural Mountains. They need the mineral resources from the Ural Mountains. They need the gas that the current what's his
In
name?
the Caucasus Mountains, the people lived to 120 years old.
And it is also the access to Korea for the Western pipeline, or the Eastern pipeline that goes out. So Russia, and now that the poles are melting, it's faster to send a ship from Russia over to China through the poles to us.
Right.